Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Beyond Enough podcast. I am your host, Amy Irons. So today, I have another incredible woman here to speak to you all. And I'm going to get her to introduce herself in just a second. And then we're going to dive into the stories behind Becky. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. It's so gorgeous to have you here. And I would love for you to introduce yourself to everyone at the podcast.
So I'm Becky, owner of Becky Michelle, and I'm a behaviour psychologist specialising in sales psychology. So yeah, that's literally me.
That's literally you, and we are here for it. And Becky and I have definitely had just the most incredible conversation before coming onto the podcast about behavior and being able to edit and change and grow through learned behavior, right? And how to really start to make changes in your life, not just for business, right? But just in general, and really getting out of those cycles that are keeping us stuck. So I'm so excited to have you here today. Cannot wait to share this conversation with everyone. But it's quite a niche area of work. So I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about you and how you came to be Becky of behavioural change.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's not a linear story, that's for sure. So, I mean, I grew up deaf. Well, I was born deaf, actually, not grew up deaf. I was born deaf, and I've definitely been counted out all of my life. Um, then, sort of growing up, I really didn't know sort of what to do. I didn't really stay in jobs long, etc. But I always had a keen interest in psychology and all of that jazz. I want to say 2020, I decided, right, I'm going to do my degree. I've got no GCSE, so I had to find a way around that. And then I just sort of sat there thinking, like, what am I good at? Because there wasn't really a lot. And I always knew how to speak to people in terms of analysing their body language, etc. So I thought, oh, do you know what? I'm just going to do psychology and criminology, combining my two passions together. That's really a quick snippet of sort of where I've got to today. And then I sort of fell into social media via my brother. And yeah, the rest is history, really.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I know that we've had discussions about the challenges that actually starting life deaf.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I think so it's quite a long story, but my didn't really get diagnosed till I was 7 years old, that I was, deaf and born deaf. So I had three older brothers, and they very much picked up the fact that I couldn't hear and would speak for me, etc. Until I started getting like lots of ear infections. I had a lot of time off school, and then it was like, right, this needs a bit of investigation kind of thing. So my mum, bless her, took me back and forth to the doctors, and I was born with other health conditions as well. So it wasn't just, sort of like that side of things. She was battling a lot of things. So she is the best mum ever. And yeah, so it was a lot of perseverance kind of thing with the doctors, because they were like, oh, we don't know what's wrong. My mum's like, it's my daughter. I know there's something wrong. So we need to find out. And yeah, so I got diagnosed when I was 7. They found the fact that basically behind my eardrum, I have a hole. And that's where the hearing loss started to come. So yeah, I was 7 years old. Obviously, like actually being told that I was deaf, wasn't really a surprise, although I didn't know anything different kind of thing. But it was definitely something that was hard to come to grasp with. But luckily, my third brother is also deaf. So I had him as a little backup kind of thing. So he very much sort of like went through that with me. So they discovered he was deaf basically when he was born. So yeah, we've got two deaf children in the family. So yeah, that is sort of like where the deaf story sort of came from. But growing up, it was very much hearing aids were like big bricks on the side of your head. I did struggle quite a lot with my speech, because I just couldn't pronounce certain words. And even now I start stuttering and the words won't come out, but are much better. But things like, speech therapy wasn't available. We're from quite a rural part in Wales, and things like that just weren't there. So it was just kind of like well, you're deaf, you've got to get on with it kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, growing up being deaf was definitely difficult. I refused to wear hearing aids. I didn't want to feel different. I didn't want anybody to think less of me. And I didn't actually start wearing hearing aids till about 2024. So it's quite recent. And I'm going through a stage at the moment again where I'm not wearing them. So yeah, it's definitely a love-hate relationship with them. But yeah, I do definitely more accepting of it now, but it's still quite a long way to go with it.
Yeah, and do you know, I totally understand that as well. Like, I don't have hearing difficulty myself, but I can understand how difficult it is, especially from such a young age, to
Mm,
have something so obviously different, right? Like,
absolutely.
I remember even having glasses at school and feeling like I'm not wearing glasses to school, and it was
Yeah.
just it felt like this thing that you need to be ashamed of, even though it was like a health related concern, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, exactly, exactly. And like, the doctors or health professionals and even members of my family said, you've got long hair, so they'll cover them anyway. But that wasn't the point for me because, I very much put my hair around my ear. So therefore they're going to be able to see them. So I did get, passed off with the long hair thing, but that didn't matter to me. It's the fact that, somebody could potentially see them and then start asking me questions that I didn't feel comfortable with answering. So yeah, it's definitely a hard thing to sort of grow up with. So
yeah. Well, thank you for being so brave and sharing that with us today, because I think there will be so many women listening who it might not be deafness for them, right? But there might be that thing that even they are still holding on to, that they feel a lot of, not even so much shame, but just like, I just don't want to have to answer questions. I just don't want people to have to bring this up, you know?
yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. And I'm definitely more open about it now. I would never tell anyone I'm deaf, but I'll go to the shop if I don't have my hearing aids. My husband will speak for me, kind of thing. So, like, I'm very much more open and honest about it now. But definitely growing up, it was just one of those things where it was just like, no, I'm not saying anything. And my mates back home, they obviously knew I was deaf, so we be out or whatever and they'd automatically pick up for me. And then because my deafness is on tone, so I struggle with men's voices because they're a lot deeper. So I would look at my friend would hear what obviously I wanted to hear, and then they'd relate it back to me. So my mates were brilliant growing up, really good.
Incredible bunch of friends, by the way.
No, exactly, exactly. So I was very lucky to have them, and I, appreciate it even now.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's incredible to have that support around you. And it sounds like your mum was like super supportive as well. And she really
Oh, yeah.
advocated.
100%. I've said I've got a lot of health conditions, so she did grow up. I grew up, always my mum being my voice. So I'm incredibly grateful for her. And actually, that's why I do everything in my business. So Becky's my name, and Michelle's my mum's name. So it's a thank you to her, yeah, for everything she's done.
That's so gorgeous. Gosh. Oh, well, collectively, we're sending so much love to your mum, because as a mama, like, you want to defend your children, you want to help them, but it's hard, I think, when, especially if you're not medically trained yourself, but like you said, your mum was like, no, there's something wrong. Like,
Yeah.
this is my baby. Like, she needs help.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. So yeah, she definitely knew me to a T, and she always knew when there was something sort of wrong and she never backed down. And she did that for all of us, and my brothers were very naughty growing up. So there wasn't some fun conversations for her, not just the medical side of it. But yeah, she's always got our back, and I owe everything to her, and she has made me the woman I am today.
That's so gorgeous. And how lucky to have like such an incredible
Yeah.
role model as well. Like, just as a
Yeah.
woman to have that is so important, I feel.
100%.
Love that so much. Thank you for sharing all of that. I would love for you to tell us a little bit about your business and how you really love to help women with this, because I think we're both in the kind of online space. Like, there's so much noise, right? It's just
Yeah.
mindset. You just need to do this and you just need to do that. But when it comes to actually changing our life, I think, we've had this kind of brief discussion. It really does come down to what you're doing
Hmm.
daily and being able to change those things that are actually keeping you stuck and keeping you kind of repeating these old cycles. So I'd love to know, what about it really appeals to you and how you see it change people's lives?
Yeah, absolutely. Growing up, because I had to heavily rely on sort of lip reading and body language, that was something that just came natural to me. And then once I sort of started my business, obviously I was doing the degree in psychology, and I remember seeing something, about analysing behaviour, and we do that subconsciously. I was like, well, actually, I've been doing that my whole life. So I sort of went down that route, discovered sales psychology, and my world just sort of changed because I was like, this is one thing I'm good at. That I can read people like it's no tomorrow. Now, online, it's a little bit hard, but the way people use some language, you can hear the tension even in DMs or anything like that. So learning again, then, sort of the behavioral sort of side it online, that's another ball game kind of thing. But yeah, I think, the actually sort of stepping in and sort of reevaluating yourself and sort of being like, right, okay, what am I good at? I grew up all my life being the naughty child, get kicked out of school and all of that. But that was sort of my, rebellion, because I was like, well, I can't hear people, but I have got my voice, and I've always used my voice to the best ability. So I brought that into my business then. And I think, just having that voice, having that authority and having the confidence to say what you need to say, it really changes the game, and especially on the social media landscape. Because a lot of people, you know, going back to growing up, I tried to hide and try and not let the world in kind of thing. But on social media, you sort of once removed kind of thing, because obviously it's not live and you're not talking to people sort of face to face kind of thing. But I think on social media, it's completely different. And, the way people show up, whether that's confidence or just in the things that they say, I think that really does change the game, and sort of being able to be all comfortable. You don't have to share your whole life story. And I know we had a conversation about this. There's still some things that I hold back on, but I
Mhm.
think having a platform to have a voice when, for me, I can't hear, and it's just give me that platform, and, being able to get out there and, tell my story and change women's lives. It's literally changed my world.
I love that. I'm a visibility coach, right? And I feel like I say this all the time on the podcast, but like when women start really using their voices, I'm like, oh, yes. Like it's so
Exactly.
powerful. Like not just in terms of the impact we can create, but also for ourselves, right? Like I think once you do it and like once you get through that resistance on the other side, my gosh, it is so gorgeous to be able to just show up as yourself and to speak
Yeah.
truth. It's so empowering.
Absolutely, 100%. And, like, I do have my voice, I could talk and things like that. But it does give me that opportunity to fully be myself, because, talking to people, that's not my forte, like face to face kind of thing. But like having that space on social media to actually do that when I don't have it naturally, like, it's everything. And like you said, a lot of people will try and hide on social media, whereas I think, you don't have to do that, because we all have these inner critics and we all have these, imposter syndrome and all of that. But I think, just getting out on social media, it does change the game, and it's completely changed my life. And, like having that voice on social media, I was able, make money, and therefore I went and bought hearing aids that are private, and that changed my life again. So even like this little platform, like completely changed the game for me.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And just on like a more personal note, like I love that you're a voice saying, do you know what, social media gave me so much because I very much am of a similar mind
Mm.
because social media takes a lot of shit. And I get that. And I get that it can be really toxic and it can be really detrimental and it can have a negative effect. But at the end of the day, people drive social media. Like
Mm.
what we engage in, what we watch, that is what's pushed by an algorithm, right? It's not an algorithm's fault, it's people. People
Yeah.
feed algorithms. And actually, social media has brought me so much. And
Yeah. 100%.
as a tool, I think if you use it effectively,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And, I see social media like my hearing aids. They allow me to express myself to a world that I wouldn't have access to without them because in reality, in real life, my life is not how it is on social media kind of thing. So I could see those benefits and the negative sides, like you said, and it is one of those things, definitely a love-hate relationship. I don't completely love social media, and I'm sure you don't, but it does give you that platform to change your life. And if I hadn't have given it a chance, I wouldn't have been able to build a business for me and my mum. I wouldn't have been able to buy private hearing aids, kind of thing. So yeah, like I know it sounds like I'm brown nosed to Instagram, but I do love it.
Do you know what? If you love Instagram, just I love that. I think again, you're right. Like I don't love all of it. Sometimes I don't love it, right? Sometimes I'm like, I can't be bothered. But I think what's important for me in that respect is to remember that it is a tool and it's not the be all end all of my business. And I think, yeah, certainly the last 18 months or so, I've definitely been focusing on making sure there are other ways that my business
Yeah,
can grow.
absolutely.
And certainly that was my kind of entry point into business, was very much like traditional network marketing. So it was like very face to face. I then went to the online space like a lot of people did because I was like,
Mm.
great, I can grow and all of these things. But I do think we see a shift to other ways of building business. But I think it always just comes down to like what works for you and how can you like create boundaries, right? Because I think that's really important. Like if you've got boundaries with social media, I think it can work much more effectively as a business tool than if you allow yourself to get sucked into the more negative side, shall we say.
Absolutely. And I think that that's sort of like spot on because, like I can be like I know I'm reliant on social media to run my business, etc. But like you said, there's so many other like visibility tools, but that's like my home base kind of thing. And like, getting on podcasts, talks, telling about my story. And, I'm quite passionate the fact that, I'm quite open that I'm deaf and I've got other health conditions, but like giving me this platform for my voice to be heard when it's never been heard in my life is just a game changer, So yeah, absolutely. There's so many possibilities with it. And just build on that confidence behind a screen. It does do massive things because I would say now that, when I first came on social media, I was so shy. I look back at the videos and I think, oh my God, they're awful. But like it has definitely brought up the confidence in me, because now I say whatever I want on my social media really. Whereas before I wouldn't do that because I've always held myself back. But yeah, definitely gives me that better platform kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. No, I absolutely love that. And I love that you shared that because I mean, I look back at my old content and think,
Oh God.
wow, like, wow. And I've always just had this ability, I think, to see what I'm doing for what it is. And I think because I'm a very future focused person as well, I can look at it and go, you needed to do that in order to get here, right? And I know I'm going to look back on the content that I do in 10 years' time and be like, well, that's, the podcast,
Yeah.
I don't know what, but it will have
Yeah.
moved on.
Yeah,
Do-
absolutely.
So I try and approach that kind of creative side as just like, do you know what? It is what it is right now. And that is great. Like just put
Yeah.
your heart and soul into it. And I think if you approach content or whatever kind of visibility you're doing for your business, even if it's conversations, right? And just say, do you know what I'm learning through it? And like taking a bit of the pressure off to be perfect.
Yeah, exactly. And that's it, isn't it? It's taken that pressure off because, you see all this glossy life on Instagram and social media. But, in reality, I quite like, the sort of online space we're on. So I don't really see that too much because I don't do influencers or anything like that. So I don't see like the glorious side of things. So I quite like my algorithm because it shows me the right people kind of thing and I don't go down rabbit holes or anything like that. But yeah, it's definitely given me the voice that I've always wanted and needed in life. So it's not just, the fact that I can, build a business off it. It's actually given me that confidence to be like, no, I can speak up. I can talk about this because it's my world as well.
Yes, I love that so much. I love that. Like, what a quote. Like, this is your world too. There are so many women and for everyone listening today, you do have a right to use your voice and you are allowed to take up space and to use your voice, and social media is such a incredible tool for that. And I think as we all know, like, the world can be a really scary place, but it can also be a really connective place, and it can also be a really special place if you allow yourself to be vulnerable and you allow yourself to be seen and heard. The right people will literally naturally come.
100%. And, because, well, my mum's, like, said this to you before, I swear a lot. Like, my mum always says there's a lack of vocabulary. And I'm like, yeah, that's fair enough. Like when I came onto social media, I was sat there, I was like, I can't swear, I can't say fuck. And, I just put it through ChatGPT and that will just give me the basics and I'll just say that. But the minute I like actually came out with it, I was like, no, fuck it, I am going to start swearing because it's me at the end of the day. And, if you met me in real life and I was all this polite person on social media, you'd have had a hell of a shock if you met me in real person. 'Cause you'd be like, oh my God, she's got a potty mouth. But you get what you give them with me. And I think, having that, because I grew my confidence on, like, through Instagram, through terrible content, I then allowed myself and accepted myself. Well, this is me. Like, I'm not going to try and pretend to be someone else. And actually, that's where the game changed for me in my business, because that is my confidence, through my lack of vocabulary, is to swear. So, like, actually doing that and being comfortable with that, again, people, even now, they message me and they're like, oh, for fuck's sake, like, this is hilarious. I'm not even trying to be funny, but I'll, whatever. But it's just me, and again, it's given me that platform to actually be myself. And I think a lot of people think they've got to be perfect on social media. You don't. My favorite word, as much my mum hates it, is the CUNT word. And yeah, I love it. It's my favorite word and such a perfect word for some people. But, had I not have grown my confidence through social media, I wouldn't show up like that.
No. And I love, again, like you've seen, I've grown my confidence. It's not like you just click your fingers and then suddenly it's there, right? It's like a journey. And if you are growing a business, right, you're starting a business or you're growing a business, social media is like you say, it's almost home based now. And there are other ways of doing it. There are. I'm not going to sit here and say there aren't. But I think having, like you say, an authentic social media presence makes things so much easier, actually. Once you
Yeah,
once you nail
absolutely.
that.
Percent. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? And, I'm very open about, the things that don't work for my business. I'll quite happily tell you, and I do content on it all the time. Like, there's one in the new year, and I was like, here's the goals that I set myself, but I didn't achieve. But I don't really give a fuck because I set myself my goals, didn't get there, but well, not the end of the world. I'll reset them and try again this year, which is what I've done. And, I did see a business coach a few weeks after to say, she said something like, actually being open and honest, the fact that you're failing a business isn't going to put you in that leadership role. And I just remember, like, sort of looking at it and I was thinking, yes, you are correct. People may not see me as a leader, but I still get hired. So at the end of the day, people will have conflicting advice about this is what you should put on social media, this is what you shouldn't say. But at the end of the day, I'm not somebody that, sits on a pedestal and says my life is amazing, because it isn't. The ups and downs of business and the amount of messages, I think I had like 50 messages from that one reel of saying, things I didn't achieve in 2025. The amount of messages from business owners was insane. And like the conversations from that, the fact that, they connected with me on a level that wouldn't happen if I just pretended that business was all fluffy and I'm the best leadership person in the industry. So I do like sort of like social media for that. But I'm extremely vulnerable on there because it's not all daisies and it's not all smelling the roses half the time.
100%. And do you know what? To me, leadership is unfaltering honesty and integrity. That's leadership for me. And if I see a woman come forward and say, actually, this is what I fucked up, these are the mistakes I've made, this is what I didn't achieve that I set out to, this is why, look at the shit show that I had. I'm like, girl, well done you.
Yeah,
Well done
exactly.
you. You have, moved your life forward. You've still showed up for yourself. You've still showed up for your clients, despite the fact you've had a really tough year, despite the fact that things didn't go to plan. Look how much you've learned. That's leadership to me. I made this amount of money and you need to follow my footsteps of this XYZ plan
Mm.
to be more like me. That's not
Yeah.
leadership. That's like,
It's manipulation, I
it
think.
is. It's people with a God complex who think that they are.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And, being that sort of vulnerable on social media. And, in terms of like, bringing a bit of psychology into it, we buy from people we trust. Now, if I was this person that said, I've made a bloody $10 million this month and this is why you should buy from me, people aren't going to trust that, but they will trust when someone's being vulnerable. And then, people like that and you build a connection, and that connection is everything. So there is a lot of conflicting advice, but like you said, the leadership piece, I'm quite open and vulnerable on it. Other people may not agree with that, but quite frankly, I couldn't give a fuck because I still got a business at the end of the day. And like you said, the fact that you've gone through that year, you've admitted out loud on social media that things haven't gone to plan, but the one thing you haven't done, fucking given up.
Yeah.
And that's the main thing. You're still going, no matter what's life thrown at you. It's a heap of shit most days, but you haven't given up, and that is crucial when you run a business.
Is. And I also think it's quite funny how, and I do think, again, this does play into social media and how we use it now in personal branding and all these things. But just because you're having like a hard time behind the scenes doesn't mean that you are not excellent at what you do for other people. And I think we forget sometimes that doctors have bad days and they still show up for surgery. And I don't know, road workers and every other profession you can think of, right?
Absolutely.
People still show up, even if they're having a bad day, even if they're having a bad time. Being honest and open about it is so important because we show other people that the facade that is put up on people to build their personal brand or whatever. But just because you're having a hard time doesn't mean that you're not showing up and giving the absolute best service or
Yeah.
whatever it is that you're, however you're helping people. And I think sometimes we get caught up in that. We get
Yeah,
caught up in saying
exactly.
like almost our expertise is somehow diminished if we are open and honest about the fact that we're a human being.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Because I think, a lot of people just think we should be fucking robots and, we're all fully booked and all of this. And I just think, like, in reality, it's not like that for business owners. Like the hustle and the grind and, all these emotions that come with being a business owner. Like last year, I should have thrown the fucking towel in because I went from, loving life to being like, oh my fucking God, what have I done? Kind of thing. And I was just like, I can't do this anymore. But the fact that, I had the determination and the drive in me, and I thought, do you know what? Fuck it. It's not worked that way. I'll just try a different way. So that's what I'm doing this year. And, I think like that, it does change the game, doesn't it? And I think, again, you see on social media, and this is the negative side. Oh, I got fully booked in 3 months. Well, congratulations. I'm fucking 2 years in and I still haven't. So you must be superwoman or something. But I'm not on my arse. Do you know what I mean? I've still got clients. I'm just not fully booked, and like that's the medal of honor, isn't it? And I don't want to be fully booked, quite frankly, because otherwise I'd start, getting too much, too busy, and then I can't give it all to my clients. So, seeing this fully booked, well, what does fully booked mean?
Fully booked looks different to everyone. That
Mhm.
might be I've got one client and I'm
Yeah.
fully booked. Like, it's so smoke and mirrors, and I hate that. Like, I really do hate it. And I think it really undermines the incredible work that women are doing in this space, and I think it actually gives our industry a bad name.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%, because then it puts pressure on business owners because they're like, well, what the fuck am I doing wrong? Why aren't I fully booked? And it's one of those things. And as soon as I see it, it just winds me up. But good if you're fully booked, like good for you. I'm not slating that. But then, you have business owners then doubting themselves because they're not fully booked. And, I'm very much, that's me because I'm like, well, there must be something wrong with me and all of this. And, that inner critic from childhood comes back in. The fact that, I was told you'll never get anywhere, you'll never do anything with your life. And I'm like, that comes back in. So it does definitely have a negative impact. And, like language on social media does change everything. And just sort of business owners realizing like fully booked means completely different things. And you're never behind, you're just in your own journey.
100%. And it's so, so important to remember that. Tell us then a little bit about what you see in terms of sales psychology on Instagram. And a lot of the women listening to this podcast will be business owners. Do you know, I've always loved language. Like, I did law. Like, I love words. Words
Mhm.
are my thing, right? And I really, yeah, I'm quite a philosophical, deep person, right? So language for me is just really important. It
Yeah.
always has been. But I think when we come onto social media, there's always like there's almost a different language, right? Like, it's people communicate in a much a much different way than we do in terms of like general media or film or
Mhm.
books or whatever. And I wonder from your perspective, like, what are those things that women could do or maybe start to implement into their language and how they're talking on social media to really, again, use their voice, get their message across, and not so much follow the crowd, but actually just lean into what actually does work in terms of language for
Mhm.
sales psychology, because that's what we're all trying to do, right? We're all trying to build a business to maybe make it easier for them, right? To maybe remove some of that, like you say, that doubt around okay, what advice do I actually take? Like, what's actually important for me to convey to my audience?
Yeah, absolutely. And, there's lots of different tactics out there. And, people will say, oh, say this, say that. Now, one thing in psychology and any sort of social sciences is the fact that we've got to focus on ethical selling. We do not use pressure tactics, no manipulation. And that's the main thing. Like you said, like the smoke and mirrors, like, that is manipulation because when you get somebody to do something that you want them to do, that's manipulation. Now, if you get somebody to do something that they want to do, that is ethical selling. So that is the one thing that I always say to all my clients, manipulation. If you want to manipulate people, I'm not the fucking person for you because I don't do it, don't like it. So, like the fake urgency, like I seen something the other day and on social media and they were like, use these scarcity tactics even if they're not true. And I just thought, makes me eye twitch and I'm like, please don't do that. So I think ultimately, the way you use language, so it's difficult and it's definitely something that I had to tweak along the way. But when you put something in writing, you've got to think, right, what is the other person on the other side going to think? Because you could mean one thing and they take it a different way. And that could be quite challenging on social media. So I always say, just be authentic. That's the main thing. Now, in terms of like actual language, I don't use scarcity or anything like that because, it's just that manipulation because at the end of the day, and I've said it before and I've not really thought about it, but when I've actually reflected on it, like saying two spots left, well, I'm telling you that I'm trying to manipulate you to say, I've got two spots left, so you need to fill it. And at the end of the day, we're then pressuring people. And, we all make mistakes and everyone gives different advice. But at the end of the day, in terms of like language and sales psychology, it's putting yourself in your buyer's shoes. And that can be quite difficult and quite hard to articulate. But when, somebody cold DMs you on Instagram, you probably think, oh, fuck off, you idiot, and delete it. So therefore, you don't go and do that to somebody else. Again, there's lots of different tactics. They say like cold DMs and all of this and all of that. Like I'm all for, cold DMing, but the way you do it is the way you do it, so you're not immediately pitching. So I think it's very much around that ethical selling, and not manipulating people. That's the main thing that I would say. Like language, it is a complex, difficult thing, and actually getting that across is hard. Being authentic and being true to yourself. And a lot of people will say, push yourself out your comfort zone. Or DM 50 people. But if you're not comfortable with that, don't do it. Because at the end of the day, it's got to align with you and it's got to feel right with you. So that's the main thing that I always say, as long as you are saying something that you feel that you are comfortable with, you say it. And that is basically the premises of everything. But very much, like the manipulation, I don't agree with it, don't like it. So yeah, that's the main thing.
Love it. Thank you for calling that out as well. I think I used to do so much content on this. I was like cold DMing. I was like, I immediately delete anyone who
Same as me.
messages me and says, I'm offering a da da da. I ignore it.
No.
I just ignore it. If it comes
Yeah.
from someone that I know who has just included me in a list, I ignore it. Because I'm like, you know me, but you've still sent that. But it's
Mm.
not, it's, you haven't even voice noted me to say,
Yeah,
by the way, I'm
exactly.
running this if it's of interest to you or your community. Because do you know what? I would have shared it.
Yeah, yeah,
And I just do not operate that way. And I understand that there are cultural differences there. Like some people are much more receptive to like a cold offer.
yeah,
But certainly in Scotland, girl, no,
yeah,
we hate that. Like culturally, like we just do not like that at
yeah,
all. And I
and
think, yeah, it is also again like just giving this impression of slimy, sleazy car salesman from the States,
yeah,
right?
exactly. You fucking run off the other direction, yeah.
Yeah, and it's oily and gross, and I think there are it comes from but like you say, it comes from scarcity because
Mm,
people think, "Right, if I don't do this, I'm not gonna make sales," because they've been taught
mm,
the wrong information by somebody who had no bloody, what's the word I'm looking for? No bloody business telling
mm.
people how to sell.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. You know, you look into human behavior, and that's a very basic thing. And I think the way I do it now is I always call it, you know, permission to pitch. I would
Yes.
always ask somebody, you know, if somebody, you know, has interest, whatever, you know, with DMing and this and that, before I pitch, I always ask their permission because at the end of the day, if they say no, well, that's fine. I can handle the objection, maybe see why that is. But if they're not interested, they're not fucking interested. So don't try and shove it down their throat because they're just going to repel you even further. And, you know, one of my coaches said to me, you could quite quickly build trust on social media. You burn it, and there is very little chance of getting that back.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? And I think this is where it really comes down to, yes, personal brand, but your business is a brand as well, and, like, how do you want your business to be known? Like, would you feel empowered and ready and confident if someone was to see behind the scenes of your business? Because
Mm.
eventually that's what happens. Like, people do start to, like, your behaviors will start to trickle out into your industry, into your client base. And who wants to start off a client relationship like that? I don't.
No, absolutely, absolutely, and that's the thing, isn't it? And you know, like we have like a continuum and sort of human behavior, but it's not just about, you know, the actual sale. Ultimately, you want client retention. Now, if you force somebody or manipulate them into sale, number one, they're going to be a fucking nightmare client and you wish you never did it. And secondly, they'll never come back to you because you forced them into a decision that didn't feel safe for them because you've manipulated them. Now, if you go down the ethical selling route, you build the relationship, you bring them through the funnel, and they feel like, yes, this is right. You're 9 times out of 10 not going to be a nightmare. 9 times out of 10, they're going to come back through the continuum and be like, yes, I want to work with you again, etc. And that's where the relationship is. And I think that's crucial because at the end of the day, people are like, oh, I need to make more sales. I need to do this. I need to do that. Great. But if you're not bringing clients back, well, you haven't got a fucking business. You've got a hobby because you'll have one time sale and that's it.
Yeah, and that's exhausting. It is
Exactly.
exhausting.
So, yeah, definitely building that relationship on safety instead of risk and pressure does change a game because, you know, I've had nightmare clients and, you know, reflecting back, it's not the fact that I intentionally went out and manipulated them. They just didn't quite sort of align in terms of the way I've done it and maybe the way I've come across and reflecting on that and actually looking through your social media and be like, am I manipulating them or am I just helping them make a decision? And that is sort of basically the way I go through my social media.
Yeah. No, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think it's so helpful. And I think as well, like, we're all on a journey. We're all on a journey, and nothing is said to shame you or make you think, oh God, am I manipulating people? No.
Exactly.
We're all
Exactly.
learning together. Like, this is something, again, like, it comes down to how we're conditioned. It comes down to what we see on social media. So social norms, like, is this what everyone
Absolutely.
else is doing? Maybe I should be doing it. Or actually just take a moment and go, is my content serving the purpose of just helping people make a decision and feel really empowered in that decision? And if not, what can I just change it with shame, you
Absolutely,
know?
absolutely. And, you know, even though I specialize in sales psychology now, like, you know, I do look back and not my, even my content now is not perfect. And, you know, I look back and I'm like, oh God, I shouldn't have said that because that's manipulation. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not perfect. I don't know, you know, exactly sort of the certain words that trigger that sort of fight or flight mode. Like, at the end of the day, we're all learning and even I make the mistakes. So I definitely want, you know, your listeners to realize that even though we're in the position we're in and, you know, I specialize in sales psychology, you may look through my content and, you know, actually I've like, oh, I shouldn't have said that because I'm, you know, using
We're
manipulative
human.
language and we're human. Exactly. So it's very much, you know, I'm not saying you need to tear down your business and stop manipulating people because it does just come out day to day. We may not intend for it, but it's definitely taken that step back when you're posting the content. Am I going to help them make a decision, or am I trying to force them into something that I want them to do?
Yeah, I love that. And it's just, again, like a small tweak. It's such a big change. And actually, I hope that it makes it easier. Actually, I hope it makes it easier for, content creation and for the language, because I think once you look at it through that lens, i.e., my content is just out there to help people make a buying decision.
Mm,
It's there to help them understand and trust and know me,
mm.
because that's what's important in my business. And I think that's a huge shift. I think once you start doing that and start to build relationships, that is a game changer for business.
100%. And, there's all these different tactics out there, etc. But ultimately, you just got to do what feels right for you. If something, that works for me might not work for you. And that's okay as well. Like we're all, like I said, we're all on a journey. We're all trying to be, the best sellers, best business people, but just doing it in a way that feels comfortable to us. And I'm never going to say, you shouldn't say this, you shouldn't say that. I mean, I disagree with the urgency. That doesn't mean, if somebody, put urgency on me, I probably would buy still. But that's just, the buyer type that I am, because I like that urgency. I just don't like putting it on other people. So I'm not saying don't ever use urgency because it's awful and you manipulate people. Because at the end of the day, just thinking about the way you're doing it and the way it comes across is the most crucial. And that's where the language comes in.
100%. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Thank you so much for our conversation today. It's been just incredible to know more about you and where you've come from, and um, everything that you're doing, right? And I think we all need a little bit of help sometimes. Like we weren't born business ready ladies, right? Like we need
Absolutely
conversations
fucking
like this,
not.
right? Like we
Yeah.
need these conversations because we're all learning. And again, like, just thank you for being so honest and vulnerable about how it is for you, because I think sometimes we do just get so caught up in where we want to be or what we think we should want. And
Yeah.
actually, there's so many ways of doing business, and there's so much joy to be had along that journey as well.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if you'd have told me, 15, 16, that I'd be a business owner, I told you to fuck off and give your head a wobble, because there's no way I'd have seen it. And it was just one of those things where I just sort of, like, as I said, growing up, I was very, very much quite disorientated. I never knew what I wanted to do. Never lasted more than a year in a job. And then, my brother started his business. I was like, do my social media because I'd always been sort of good at talking in that respect. And then I just found it. I was like, oh my God, this is what I've been searching for all my life. And yeah, I always say to people, if you've got an idea, fucking go for it. So what if you fail? At the end of the day, you're only going to learn from it. And I'm learning every fucking day.
Every
Change
fucking
my business.
day.
Yeah, exactly. More than I want sometimes. I'm like, "Oh, fuck's sake, here's another learning fucking mistake," kind of thing. But yeah, it's definitely one of those things, isn't it? It's not all linear. Like I said, it's not all the way it is. And, most people will say to me if I tell them I'm deaf, "I didn't know you were deaf and all of this." And I'm like, well, that's just what you see on social media. So it's, again, that's important. The fact that, you only see very tiny snippets of people's lives on social media. So it's always important to remember that aspect as well. And again, using the words fully booked looks different to everybody. So yeah, definitely that's one of my pieces of advice, that, you go onto social media, just don't believe everything that you see. Don't take everything for face value, because at the end of the day, it's got to work for you, whatever you do.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. And thank you for joining us today for this conversation. It's been incredible to have you on. And
Thank you.
I will link all of your details down below in the show notes that everyone can come and connect with you on Instagram, on social media.
I enjoy the swearing is all I can say.
Yes, we love it. Look, we love a little F bomb here. Like, we've said this before. Like, I'm also like, so you're Welsh, I'm Scottish. Like, we curse. It's just a thing.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And I'm always saying this. I'm like, it's not an insult.
No,
If
it's
I
just
swear, it's not an insult,
no.
but it's just my vocabulary. My mum hates it, and when she hears this podcast, she's gonna be like, "Oh my God, you've been swearing again." And I'm like, don't start.
Well, thank you so, so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I hope I didn't go off too many tangents, because that's one of the things that I do normally do is I'll start talking about one thing, I'll remember something else, and I go down the rabbit hole down there. So I do apologise.
Not at all. We love a tangent. And all of my listeners know. I love it. Thank you so much, Becky. And I will see everyone else in the next one.